Thank you for having me. I very much appreciate the opportunity to introduce us to you. We have been around for a long time, and we're good at many, many, many things, but one thing that we've learned we're not as good at is throwing ourselves out there and marketing ourselves as well. So we are trying to get past that. So what I'm going to do briefly is I'm going to give you a little bit of who we are, what our philosophy is, and how we do the things we do, which makes us as good as we are. And then I'm going to show you some pictures of the productions and stuff so that you get a sense of what we actually are, and then open it up for questions. So I'm going to walk in front of this. Did I mess anything up? Or are we good? We're good. All right. So this is our this year poster. I believe you all have a flyer in front of you, so you can see it if you'd like. And that's just our poster that we put up all over the place. So the festival was actually founded in 1995 as an outdoor Shakespeare in the Park. And it was really, really sweet and really, really fun. And they built a Globe Theater out in a park, and they started building from there. I get asked all the time, why is it in Jackson? Which is not the most populous county in Michigan, nor is it, by reputation, the most artistically connected, community in the state. But it's in Jackson because when it first started, a gentleman in town who was the president of Comerica Bank decided that this was a good endeavor, and so he started investing in it. And so when it comes to art programs, you guys are all in an arts and leisure board, sometimes you just go where the money is. And that's kind of how it started in Jackson, if you've ever wondered. So it was started in 95. They started hiring professional actors and designers in 1997. So it was a pretty quick turnaround from like high school kids in the park to starting to hire. And what they did then is they'd hire one or two pros, and then they'd hire a bunch of college kids mostly. But they were good, and they were able to grow. They grew so much that by 2003, the MSF was named the official Shakespeare Festival of the state of Michigan. This is another question that I get asked by a lot of community theaters. How come you call yourself the official Shakespeare Festival? And I say, because I have a big thing on my wall signed by the governor that says I am the official Shakespeare Festival of the state of Michigan. And so that was done in 2003. We ended up moving indoors in Jackson in 2004. Another question I get, why did you move inside? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, we started expanding the union, using more people, and we wanted to be able to use more technical elements. None of that is really a possibility when you are outside. The other thing is that in 2003, the festival brought in a couple of amazing actors, one of whom is now a Steppenwolf Company member to play Othello. One of them just got off a Broadway run in Something Rotten. These were incredible guys that were brought in to do the shows, and the shows rained out over 70% of the season. Yeah, and so that almost killed the festival just in terms of not being able to produce. So in 2004, we moved inside to the Bauman, which, and I will get to this, was designed by the same person who designed the beautiful Village Theater. They have a similar footprint. When you are in them, the stage looks the same. So, you see where I'm going with this? In 2010, I was hired. I took over at that point. At that time, I brought in some very specific people to be artistic associates. One of them is Jeremy Hopgood. He is my technical director and scenic designer. If you want to Google him, you will find out he is literally the guy who wrote the book on advanced programming for theater. He is the guy who wrote QLab 3. I know, you're like, QLab 3? I do not suggest buying this and thinking, hey, beach reading. It's not. But in the technical theater world and in the design world, that's who he is. And he has recently started a program at Eastern Michigan University that is designed for television, stage, and film. So they teach the students how to do like the green screen stuff, and how to work with explosives, and how to deal with things like that that would be needed in movie sets. The kids who come out of that program are working. At the bachelor's level, right when they get out, they're getting hired by production companies, and that's who Jeremy is. His wife, Kate Hopgood, happens to be a composer. She is amazing. All of the music that we do in our productions is original. She writes it. She's won awards left, right, and backwards. She's been all over the country, and she, again, is here in Michigan, so she's part of our group. David Stoughton is our lighting designer. You can look him up. He was at Williamstown, the big one on the East Coast for a long time, but we've got him now. And that was the team that we started our artistic associates. So this is kind of the group that gets together every year. When I was hired in 2010, the next thing that I did was expand the season. Before me, they put up 2 Shakespeare plays every year. And at that time, the board thought people would never come and see a show they'd never heard of. So by the time I got the job, the festival had been open for 15 years, and they had done Romeo and Juliet 5 times, A Comedy of Errors 4 times, The Taming of the Shrew 4 times, etc. Okay? I said, that's crazy. So I set up kind of what we do now. We do 3 shows per season. One of them is a well-known, beloved, everybody's heard of it, Shakespeare play. This year, As You Like It. A couple of years ago, Hamlet, etc. The second is a lesser produced Shakespeare play that people usually come to me and say, oh my God, I can finally get this off my bucket list. This year it's Richard II, but we've done things like Cymbeline and Love's Labour's Lost. The kind of things where my board, the Shakespeare Festival board, turns to me and goes, who read that? And I'm like, So that's the second show we do. And then the third show we do is a classic play that is not Shakespearean. So we've done Tartuffe by Molière. We've done Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. We've done The Importance of Being Earnest by Wilde. This year we've deviated just a little bit from this, and we are doing our first interpretation of literature. And we actually have a live playwright. I've never been able to introduce a playwright before. It's really awesome for me. Her name is Karen Tarian, and she did the adaptation of Michael Shara's novel. And people keep asking me, why did you choose this one? Are you feeling the people keep asking me vibe we've got going? People keep asking me why I chose it. Honest to God, it is an American Shakespearean history. It is written in the way that Shakespeare wrote his plays, and it plays beautifully with music and tragedy and comedy, and it's absolutely beautiful. All right. So in the past years, since 2010, we have increased our audience by nearly 60%. Okay, when I started on, we were having houses with maybe 70 in them, and we thought that was great. We're at about 150 now on average, and we still want to boost that up. We are constantly getting critical and audience acclaim, which I gotta love. We have won or been nominated for more Wilde Awards. If you've never heard of the Wilde Awards, these are the Michigan Theater, the Professional Theater Awards than any other theater in the past 6 years. Now, not more than any other theater since the Wilde Awards have been around, because I had nothing to do with it back then. But since 2010, we have got that. We've been named Broadway World's #1 theater pick in Michigan 2 years in a row. We are the best value. And according to a study that was done in 2010 by the state of Michigan, we bring between $2 and $4 million into Jackson County each year into their tax base. That is people going to restaurants, going to stores, going to bars, in addition to staying at hotels, all of that, in addition to just ticket prices and things like that. I do not have a study about last year and our time here in Canton, but I do know that audience numbers were similar for our time here, so I'm going to extrapolate that we've got a similar pull, okay? So I'm just going to throw that out there. No proof of that, completely unscientific. All right. So I get the thing all the time. There are a lot of Shakespeare companies around. They just started up one in Detroit a couple of years ago. There's a lot of good work being done. Why are we different? We are different basically because we have decided to look at why Shakespeare is still being produced 400 years later and put up our shows for that reason. Okay? I don't know if you all know this at all, but the time that Shakespeare wrote his plays, the size of the city of London was similar to the city of Ann Arbor without the students. We are not talking a huge number. We're talking 50,000 to 80,000 people lived there. In order to make money, you do not make money as a playwright. Historically, Shakespeare probably made about $700 for writing Hamlet. That's in today's money. That's not in Elizabethan money. That's all he made. They didn't make their money on this. There was no copyright, so who cared? The way you made your money in Elizabethan theater was by getting people to see your shows. And there were so few people that you needed to constantly put in new shows, and you needed those people to come back all the time. That was the only way you could make money. Shakespeare was very, very good at it. He was the manager of the theater. He made a lot of money. He made enough money that he was able to retire, buy a big property back in his hometown, and basically hang out for the last 10 years of his life as a prosperous local gentry kind of guy. This did not happen in this time period. This is an amazing feat that he pulled off. He was really good at it, really good at it. Okay, now I told you he was 26 years old when he started writing his plays, right? Well, have you guys seen this picture before? It's probably in the high school text that you had to read. This is the woodcut picture of Shakespeare that was put in the First Folio that was published in 1623, about 9 years after he died. It is the first compendium of his plays. We consider it to be the closest to what he had, and this is the picture that is in it. I hate this guy. This guy makes my life so hard. I can't even tell you because of what he symbolizes. In this picture, he's somewhere around the age of 50. He's already retired from writing plays. He's well beyond that point in his life. At this point, he's doing the well-to-do, hanging out in Stratford thing. This is not a guy I want to date on Friday nights. This, in my opinion, is the image equivalent of when you were all forced in high school to sit at a desk and read Shakespeare. And you went, I don't know what this means. It's confusing. People don't use words like this. What does it mean? Why do I have to deal with verse? Any time in my life I have looked at something and it's on the page, like in perfect verse, I've gone, oh, for God's sake. All right, because it's terrible until you learn the rules, until you learn how it works, until you learn why he wrote it in verse. Do you know why he wrote it in verse? People always say because he's a poet. It's not because he's a poet. It's because at the time your job was to memorize if you were an actor. You got no rehearsals. Someone would hand you a roll of paper, a scroll. That's where roll came from, in case you ever wondered. Yeah, someone would hand you, and it would have your lines on it. And they would say, Thursday morning, we're going to learn the fights on this show. That's all the rehearsal you got. So you would memorize this thing. That was your job. He made it easier to memorize by putting it in verse, by giving it a meter, like a song that you hear on the radio. The first time you hear the song, by the time the song is over and you've heard the chorus 3 times, you can sing along to the chorus, right? In your car, I'm not calling you out, anybody, but you know you do it. The second time you hear it, you get some of it. You probably get the bridge, because the bridge is always good, right? The third or fourth time you hear it, you can sing along and you know the words to it. That's why Shakespeare wrote in verse. Because it's easier to memorize, it's easier to use. And once you explain to actors and you teach them the ins and outs of the verse, he wrote it with the equivalent of music notation. The punctuation that's in there is in there to show you when to breathe and what words to emphasize and when to pause. It's all in there. Strangely enough, most actors don't know this. But once you teach it to the actors, suddenly they get it. Suddenly they understand it. Suddenly it's got rhythm, it's got meter, it's got verse. Why do you think Lin-Manuel Miranda is such a genius? His verse, his incredible ability to take language and use it. Now, grant you, this is 400-year-old language, and I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world. But once you start connecting it to rhythm and to meter, once you start realizing how it flows, it changes everything. And it's no longer a guy in pumpkin hose with a big ruff around his neck saying, to be or not to be, that is the question. Suddenly, it's jazz. Suddenly, it's got a bit of hip hop. I hate this guy because this is what people think of Shakespeare. My work, when I put up our main stage shows, and by the way, we created a touring company in 2010 that brings Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth to high schools all over Michigan, Indiana, and northern Ohio to very specifically teach students he didn't write this stuff to be read. He wrote it to be performed. It's the equivalent 400 years from now, people are going to sit around and read the scripts of Joss Whedon. The Avengers script is going to be a great tragedy that they all had to read in high school. I mean, it's that outrageous to the mind of an Elizabethan playwright that his work would do that. He wrote the plays for people to come back and see them again so he could make money. So I hate this guy. I like this guy. This is the Cobb portrait of Shakespeare. Some people argue whether or not it's him. I've heard it all. I'm going to say it's him, at least for this moment, because look at this guy. If it is him, this was done when he was writing plays. Look at those. I'd go out with this guy on a Friday night. This is a Friday night that I would spend. When Hollywood wanted to make a story about William Shakespeare, they did not cast Paul Giamatti who, by the way, would be cast perfectly in this, don't you think? They didn't go with that. They went with this guy. Because again, this guy, Joseph Fiennes, is a guy you want to spend your Friday night with. That is the MSF's approach to Shakespeare. That is how we connect with it every year. We find the reason that that play was popular. Was it the romantic storyline? Was it the connection to, Hamlet, it's this guy, this character, and we go from there. We don't decide we're going to put it in the Wild West or put it on the moon because that would be fun. We decide what is the easiest way for an audience to connect. What is the way that puts the least boundaries between our audience and our shows? And those are the choices that we make. So, in 2010, when we did Romeo and Juliet, it looked like Titanic, in all honesty. The costumes and everything, and it was beautiful. That went fast. Comedy of Errors was a silly, was like a silly, goofy, comedic, it kind of looks like a funny thing happened. Right, exactly, kind of goofy. Much Ado About Nothing we set in 1953 because we were able to use the fact that the samba music was becoming popular and people were into that. The Winter's Tale we told as a fairy tale. That was our first Wilde Award for Best Shakespeare. That same year, we won the Wilde Award for Best Comedy for Tartuffe. It's Tartuffe. You got to do white wigs. They're funny if they're done right. Richard III. Look at that guy. That's a happy villain, right? George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. Love's Labour's Lost. Wilde Award Best Shakespeare. As you can see from that picture, it's not four people standing on stage declaiming their lines. Twelfth Night, which was a huge musical. We did it to the kind of the neo-romantics, like think Adam and the Ants. King John, that was just weird and fun. And people were like, really, King John? Yeah, we did King John. No one does King John. She Stoops to Conquer. Hamlet. The Importance of Being Earnest. Yes, that is the guy who played Richard III in the dress. He played Lady Bracknell. He was quite brilliant. Cymbeline. Again, fairy tale. It was beautiful. People went crazy. This was last year, Midsummer Night's Dream, that we did right here in this space. Henry IV, The Rivals, and this year we've got As You Like It, which is being done as a fairy tale that's sort of set in a Victorian world where when we are in the city, women are very constrained and tight-laced and corseted, and it's all coal and darkness and industrial, and then they go into the woods, and everything's free and beautiful, and people can find themselves, and it's wonderful. Richard II, this is your political thriller. This is the HBO, not like Game of Thrones HBO, but like Kevin Spacey and House of Cards, right. Very much the House of Cards version. It's a king thing. They fight it out. It's kind of awesome. And this year we're doing The Killer Angels, the play by Karen Tarian from the novel by Michael Shara. It is the Battle of Gettysburg, done by 12 guys, live on stage. So that's our season for this year. This is who we are. I think I've introduced us to you, and I'm wondering if you have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Do you find your audience is mostly an older crowd, or can you any interest in the younger generation?
Yes, we have found that we have a very strong 60% of our audience is 55 and up. But that's only 60%, and with most theaters, it's actually higher now. So we're doing a pretty good job of the 40% pulling mainly from the 20 and 30-year-olds. I don't know what it is about 40 to 50-year-olds. I think it's just because they all have kids and it's hard to get away. They're our lowest current demographic. But 20 and 30-year-olds, we're starting to pull. That's been a lot of our growth. When I said we've had a 60% growth, a lot of it has been in younger people. We have also brought a lot of students in. We have student prices. What we try and do with students is we try and make seeing a live Shakespeare show no more expensive than going to the movies. So we have $10 to $14 tickets that say, hey, you were going to go to the movies, come and see a live show.
What was your decision to perform in Canton?
The decision to perform in Canton was a combo platter. Truthfully, if we had just stayed in Jackson, the demographic analysis was not good for us. People are fleeing the county. Businesses are leaving. Financial organizations are starting to just sort of fall. And we knew that in the long run this was not good for our growth. So we knew we wanted to head east in the state of Michigan, you know, where the people are. So we started going and looking at different possibilities. There were 7 or 8 different theaters that we had meetings with. And at the end of the day, in addition to wonderful people like Jennifer and, you know, people like Peg who've helped us out in a great way. But in addition to that, by coming to Canton, we did not have to change what we do. All of the other theaters that we looked at, we would have to restructure our scenic design. We would have to restructure things because the layout of the theater would be so different. Right. We'd have to design twice at least in order to make everything happen. And the footprint of the Village Theater stage is similar enough, exactly, that we can literally pick it up and move it in. Now that, combined with your location, where you are in Wayne County, but very much surrounded by Macomb and Oakland and everybody else, which is one of our power centers in terms of pulling audience, it really, there were about 10 different factors that came together and said this is the best place to go. We're happy with the decision.
We are too.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about your company and the actors that you've assembled this year.
The company...
Highlights, returns.
Absolutely. We do have a few actors who are regulars with us. One of them is Janet Haley, who is the... I would have to... She's the woman on your program there. There she is. She's in the pants right there. Janet Haley is a professional actress, and she has been at the festival 11 different times. She is amazing and wonderful and fun. She is on faculty up at U of M Flint, but she has a long, extended career in Seattle and in Austin as an actress. She's amazing, and she's one of those people that just helps solidify the company. We also have an actor by the name of Alan Ball, who has worked both nationally and internationally. He comes back every year. This year he's playing Touchstone for us. He's playing General Hood in The Killer Angels. He comes back every year. The guy in the dress and the guy who is also Richard III is David Turrentine. He is not back with us this year, but he's back almost every year. I know, yeah, his kid is graduating and it's a whole, but he comes back. But how we assemble the company is because we are a LORT theater. LORT means League of Resident Theaters. It is the highest designation that you can have for a theater company in terms of the union. There are only 2 LORT theaters in the state of Michigan. It's us and Meadowbrook. Nobody else is. Purple Rose, Williamston, everything else is what they call an SPT, Small Professional Theater. We're a LORT. And what that means is we have certain requirements that we have to fulfill in order to maintain our LORT. But part of it is because we are this size, we have to do 2 days of auditions in Chicago, which is the hub. If New York were our hub, we'd have to do it there. If LA were our hub, those are the 3 hub cities. So we do 2 days of auditions in Chicago. And when we're auditioning there, we get Chicago actors, we get Wisconsin, we have people flying in. That's kind of where that happens. We do a full day union call in Detroit, where we use the Hillberry Rep for our home, so we see Detroit and Michigan. And then we have one open call day in Jackson that is completely open for anyone. And we have hired people actually in that call from Indianapolis, and someone came up from Texas, and we got someone from Memphis one year. So the company that we assemble is from all over. But at this moment, we're about 65% Michigan. The rule that Robert, who is, he directs 1 show a year, I usually direct 2. The rule that we have is tie goes to Michigan. So if we have 2 actors that we like and that we think can fill a slot, the Michigan one wins. And because of that, this year we have a couple of guys out of Detroit. We've got an intern who's amazing, who's like at Wayne College. He's never done a professional show before. He's doing great guns. He's been amazing. And we have components from all over the country, and our main component is Michigan. Yeah.
How often do you come to like high schools?
Our touring company comes. The main stage company doesn't. We cannot. It's a kind of a different beast. When it comes to our touring company, we have 2 shows, and we blanket the area to teachers, hey, we're available. We come between January 11th and June 24th, and it's the school setting it up. We have played This is fascinating to me. We've played Plymouth High School, but we've never played Canton High School, even though you guys are all on the same campus, right?
Have you played Salem? Because that's where the biggest theater is.
I don't think so. I think we've only played Plymouth.
Where in Plymouth did you play?
It was like 5 years ago. We might have played at Salem, but it was for the Plymouth kids.
Okay.
It's the English teachers who set it up. And so we usually do between 35 and 65 shows each season. The farthest south we've ever gone is Fort Wayne. The farthest north we ever go is there. Yes, up in the Mount Pleasant zone. Thank you. That was a good call. Thank you, guys. I'm always like, we don't tend to go above the fingers. That never happens. I'm using the wrong hand. No, I am not. Okay. So yeah, that's and we actually did a show last year in Muskegon. That was as far west as we've ever gone. That was really hard because most of our company is based either out of Detroit or out of Ann Arbor. We've got a couple that come down from Flint, and they combine to make the company. Yes.
So I was just wondering if you guys do any performances, like not during the summer, so during like for the high schoolers, it would be during the school year. So like
From January 11th until June 24th, we play high schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, oh, I just mean like your big theater.
Nope. The big theater has a 6-week run, and this year it is July 7th through August 14th. We have had school groups that come to us to the theater, but in order to travel to a high school, the amount of money we would have to pay the union is ridiculous. You don't want to know the ins and outs, but you can do anything if you want, if you can pay the union enough. Is kind of how it works.
The reason why I asked was because this past school year I took a class called Honors Humanities,
Mm-hmm.
and so part of the requirements for that class is that you have to, every semester you have to do, they call them logs, you have to do 3 of them, and that's where you go out into like the real world and you experience humanities from like a real world perspective. So like you can go to plays, you can go to like museums and stuff like that. So I was just thinking like if I was taking this, like when I was taking this class, this
would have been
like a
perfect
really
for
cool
you.
experience, especially when we were studying Shakespeare and stuff like that.
I agree with you. We got bawled out a few times. I think Jennifer was there for one of them last year by an audience member in Canton who said, "How come this is only 3 weeks? I'm going up north and I'm not going to be able to see the other 2 shows. How come it's only 3 weeks?" And she was very angry at me about it. And I said, I'm really sorry, but once again, we're filling our 400-seat houses to about 150. We can't afford to run longer. And so that's an awkward thing, and she got very upset about the answer because, money over art. And I'm like, paying people over not, it was a very awkward around and around, but she ended up being very nice about it. And I think she's already bought her tickets for this year, so woohoo. But that is honestly the truth. When I, again, get asked, why is this the run of your shows, it's honestly all we can afford. Yeah, that's a terrible answer, I know, sorry.
How does that work, for the actors, for this time? There's a lot of work, a lot of preparation that goes into those performances for 6 weeks. Do the actors then have regular jobs?
Oh no, this is your full time. You don't have time for anything else. We are, as a LORT company, as a professional company, we have to pay a living wage, and we do.
But you pay a living wage for those 6 weeks?
No, for the length of the contract, which is 11 weeks.
For the 11 weeks, okay.
Yeah. Which means we have 5 weeks that we're paying out with no income coming back.
Nothing coming back.
Yeah, exactly. That's the crunch. That's the ow. But in those 5 weeks, we rehearse and tech 3 shows so that an audience or someone can come in, for instance, to Jackson in 2 days and see all 3 shows. That's why we don't do kind of a rehearse for 2 weeks, put up a show, rehearse again, put up a show, put up. It's because we have learned that we have people who are coming from all over the Great Lakes region, and they're only coming in for a weekend, and that way they can see all 3 shows. And it's a, bottom line projection. We tried to figure out what would happen if we split it, all of that. You don't want to hear this, but we've done the math, and the math isn't.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that all makes sense.
No, that's how that works. Yeah.
Do your actors work all 3 different plays, or are they all different actors in 3 plays?
They're in all 3 plays unless we don't need them. For instance, there are no women in the Killer Angels. So the women have that show off. But yes, it is the same acting company. This year we have an acting company of 15 that covers the 3 shows. Yes?
How young usually, how young are like your youngest actors?
Unless I've hired a child, my youngest actors are probably 25 because they all have at least undergraduate degrees plus training program. I don't have time to train them. I do a little bit in the beginning, but I don't, you know, when I was talking about how you need to know how Shakespeare works, they need to know. Now, I always hire 1 or 2 apprentices, and I will sit with them at off times, and I will take them through all of this stuff, and evenings and weekends and stuff. We don't have weekends, actually, but evenings and Mondays, because Mondays is our day off. So I'll do some of that with them. But yeah, these are professional actors. Even the ones who aren't union yet are working towards their union and are paid accordingly. Yeah, we rehearse, the union standard for a LORT is we rehearse 7 hours of an 8.5 hour day to break up as we will. So the length of our day can be 8.5 hours, and we can rehearse 7 of it within those 8.5 hours. And so this isn't really something you can do and then go to your other job. Yeah.
What's your primary form of marketing or advertising? Is it through the local community's outreach through the community, or do you also run social media?
We run social media. Most of our marketing is guerrilla, which means we have a great social media presence. We have, I think, 4,500 Facebook friends and 2,800 Twitter followers, and our average spread when we post something, I actually looked at the analytics today, is 13,000 people tend to see every post that we put up. So we have that. In addition to that, we do local media, and Jennifer has been very helpful, and I've done the Canton TV, and we do JTV all the time. We also tend to advertise on public radio. We have just demographic analysis. We have found that tends to be very much our group. And then we also have the in print. You'll find us in the Ann Arbor Observer. We're in the Detroit Free Press. We have ads in different places. But honestly, when I say that the thing we've been worst at in the time I've been here, it's been marketing. The number of people that I run into who are like, really, Michigan has a Shakespeare festival? Ah, it's heartbreaking. How many before you got here tonight didn't know we existed? See, and I don't take it personally, I promise. It's heartbreaking to me because we always think we're doing a really good job of getting the word out, and then as soon as we close, we have people calling and going, I just heard you exist. And, so we're trying to change that.
Have you used Groupon or Living Social?
We've used Groupon before. We've done Living Social. Right now we have meetups, if you follow any of those.
Oh, I just got one.
Did you? On us? Yeah.
I got one.
There are a bunch of other groups that are like Groupon that at different times we have used, and we have not found any of them to be anything other than a free ticket giveaway. And if we're going to do a free ticket giveaway, we're going to do it for public radio or things of that nature. It's our experience so far. Yes?
Are you a 501c3?
We are a 501c3. Have been since 97. And then we got a thing in 2006 because I guess they changed some of the rules. So yeah, I can send the letter if anyone wants to see it. But yes, and it's all on our website, www.michiganshakespearefestival.com. There's all sorts of stuff about us on there too. Yeah.
Do you ever get a chance to get on the local morning news shows that they have?
I have in the past, and sometimes I do. I actually get I've done Stateside with Cynthia Canty, and I've done Speaking of Art with Ed Hoffman. He's a dear. And I do the WKUR up in Lansing every year. And then there's usually a UOM where I do a morning, one of those short little bursts. We get those.
I knew some of those local singers, and all they did was call the show, and they let them on a couple weeks.
Well, that's nice.
So that's why, if it's that easy for you to call something like, what is it, the D in Detroit, or it's on
That one I don't know.
Live in the D.
Live in the D?
And we have reached out to WDID on their behalf, and I don't know that we tried to put people in touch.
Right. The DIV people who were lovely and excited just notified me that they're totally full this weekend and sorry. I've reached out again and said, well, then how's next weekend? And I haven't heard anything. So I'm just going to keep banging on that door. Megan is her name, and she's been lovely.
Here.
Yeah.
She is.
Yeah. So she's who I've been sort of, hey. We had a telephone chat, and she was absolutely delightful, but she said this weekend filled up. So we're going to try.
So do you want to make this a long-term commitment in Canton, or
Based on our current financial situation, we have to do a re-evaluation. We would like it to be a long-term. We like the space, we like the people, we like the area, we like the audience that it pulls. There's really no downside. It's just for us looking at how we make it all line up. Yeah.
So how can we retain the bragging rights that we have the Michigan Shakespeare Festival in Canton? You can buy tickets and attend, bring others with you, take your brochure, and there are more over there that Ann left, and she can help you get more if there aren't enough, and help Michigan Shakespeare by making a donation to their 501c3. And if you know of any businesses that have a little extra sponsorship money,
that's the biggest thing. Right now, all of our sponsorships are in Jackson. All of our partners, and we have about 35 different business partners who end up connecting with us every year. And we started banging on the doors here in Canton in 2013 when we knew we were going to do this. And then we figured, oh, well, we haven't been here, so they don't know. And then we kept on in 2014 and 2015. And we're now hitting 2016, and we still don't have that connection to the local business community. That is one of those things that's just so fundamental for keeping something like this afloat. That's been our big thing. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us tonight. I am going to Richard II in a couple of weeks and really looking
Thank you.
forward to it.
Also on Friday and Saturday nights, if you're interested, if you show up at 7 o'clock here, we do talks before the shows. So for instance, if you're seeing Richard II and want to know like all the historical stuff that came before it that sort of sets it up, we do stuff like that. We do stuff about the play's histories. We do funny stories about other productions. We do that kind of thing at 7 o'clock prior to the show.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really looking forward to
Hopefully.
being able to come out and see a show.
Yes.
On your show, the Cover Angels on the 30th?
Yes.
says Canton Technical Preview. What does that mean?
It's just, that's the second time we're technical. We don't expect that there will be any issues. We're just letting people know that, yeah, that's all. That's all. Yeah, Killer Angels has been amazing. People are kind of going crazy for it. And, you know, and they're going crazy for As You Like It in Richard II, which is lovely. But honestly, Killer Angels is something that they've never seen before. I mean, this is really... I was actually knocking on a lot of theater doors originally thinking that I couldn't do it because I'm the Shakespeare Festival. Like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And all the other artistic directors were like, oh, there's too many guys, I can't do it. And it was like, oh, fine. I'm actually quite thrilled, but I'm going to try and be put upon. All right,
Thank you.